Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Truth Works. I am Jessica Neal, and Patty is still out recovering. Get better, Patty. We love you. But today I have a special guest, an old friend of mine. We go way back. His name is Richard Ezekiel. We call him Rich. Hi, Rich. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Jessica. It's been too long. Great to see you.
You too. I'm so glad that you reached out because you have this book that you just wrote, and we're going to get into that because I know there's a whole journey about that. But when you reached out, you mentioned how we met, and I remember that like so clearly. But why don't you tell people how we met and how we know each other?
Well, Jessica, when I reached out to you recently, it wasn't as good as your cold call to me. Back, I don't know how many years ago that was. It's probably like over a decade ago.
Yeah.
I think it was.
Yeah, it's dating me. Thank you.
But I mean, sorry about that. But it's been a while. But I was working at Yahoo back in the day, and in Sunnyvale in the Valley, and we were working on, I believe at that point, a pretty early stage of what streaming TV could do. We weren't sure what the killer application would be, but it was a bit of the Wild West. Working with consumer electronics companies across the planet, trying to figure it out and how to do it effectively with a good quality of service, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't know how Jessica got my phone number, but it wasn't like I got an email and I didn't get an email and it wasn't like, hey, maybe we should talk. It was a voice message on my mobile phone. I didn't know Jessica at the time. She reached out with a voice message that was just a very sort of honest and open and created a relationship with a message on one side. I don't know how she did that I was compelled enough to call her back. She basically was very open. She didn't make it something like, she just said, hey, I'd love to connect. Love to learn more about what you're working on. We're working on some interesting things here at Netflix, and would love to make the connection. And it was like, oh, I'm always about making connections. I'm always about meeting more people and understanding how to build my network. That's always been a kind of common thread and theme that I'm always trying to do. And I had heard about Netflix, but at that time, it's kind of hard to believe is that it didn't have that kind of breakthrough of a company that we have seen grow over the last decade. So I was a bit skeptical about how we could work together, but it was more to make the connection with you, Jessica, and kind of learn more what you're working on. And I'm always happy to talk about what I was working on. So
and then you did it. You came. So I call you, you call me back, we start talking, and then what?
It was then making sure, I think, Jessica, what you were doing at that point was building a relationship, between, you didn't know me well. You had probably seen or heard my name through contacts or partners. And it was more of just like getting to know what makes me tick, having you introduced me some great folks that were inside of Netflix for have them tell their story about how they came to. It wasn't an interview.
Yeah.
It was building. Yeah. It was really understanding about like, hey, we all like at the end of the day want to make impact in the kind of work we do. We want to, and work with great people. Yeah. And so, it wasn't an interview from day one. It's like, hey, there's some really great people working on some really hard problems to solve, and it wasn't, but I navigated that for, 6+ months before kind of finding the kind of right kind of role that was, it was. Yeah. It was but it started with the cold call.
Yeah. And, this is, it's what I did, but this is where I get so frustrated with recruiting teams in general. It's just that they don't, they're just sort of doing it as a process instead of making it an experience. And my whole thing was like, we want to know all the best people everywhere. We may not have anything for them, but we might. But if we don't know them and we don't have a relationship with them, we won't ever get them. And if their experience with us is like every other company, we're not going to stand out. They're not going to want to, be part of it. And so the whole thing was like making it like an elegant experience so that everybody that interacted with us walked away from whatever interaction wanting to work with us. And that was the goal.
Yeah.
But
No, that's
a lot of recruiters don't think about it that way. But you, first of all, you're at a very big tech company now, in Seattle area, but you've had an amazing career. So let's talk a little bit about your career and your story. And then your career and your story led you to write this really great book that I want to start getting into as well. So tell us a little bit about your story, your career, and then how that led you to the book.
Yeah, now this feels like an interview, Jessica. That was no, I'm kidding. No, I think it's all about the storytelling, right? And I think on this one, I was fortunate to really work with and be inspired by some incredible leaders, prior to Netflix, but also inside of Netflix, and beyond. And I think for me, it was kind of honing my passion area and my craft. I really wanted to find this kind of like collection of, I'm working on like problems that customers are facing today, like pretty big idea, but do it with, in a scrappy, innovative way with a group of folks that have that common interest, and do something I could look back on and say, hey, I learned a hell of a lot, but I want to build that as a foundation to do more and learn more. And I think that gene is just in many of us to want to continue to kind of go into the unknown. And sometimes we don't have all the facts and figures to kind of make those kind of decisions. But if we have really interesting and good people around us to support us, not just from our past, but also as we move into the next stage, I think that's where I've always had that as I've been lucky. And I think that's been just connecting and being open to connect with folks. And not every relationship that I've started or built, either professionally or personally, is still here today. But at the same time, there are some. For me, starting out in the early days from my first internship with Wired magazine, that was, you probably didn't know that one, but that was quite interesting.
I don't know if I knew that one. Yeah.
Yeah, that was, I was still.
Yeah.
It was a very cool magazine. It was new at the time. That dates me. But I saw what was happening in terms of, not just, hey, this is a, kind of like a boring technical, kind of the last decade of what was happening with mainframe computers and telecom networks were also very interesting, but it was the foundation of what the internet was built upon. Now, my Wired experience was more about like, I saw a collection of, musicians and artists and folks using the internet in pretty interesting ways that, and at that point I said, hey, I want to really look for a company that's starting to pave the way of what's happening with the internet. And at that point, the World Wide Web was still something that wasn't as prevalent as we use it every other minute today. But I moved over to Netscape Communications at a pretty early stage and was a bit more hands-on keyboard doing web development. So, but at that time at Netscape, I had my first interaction with working with partners. We were building a portal, sort of like Yahoo, like a search directory. And we didn't see opportunity to go build a bookstore, for example, which was a startup out of Bellevue at the time, Amazon, or Music Boulevard, who's no longer with us, or Travelocity and others. So I started working even at my day job as a web producer and developer to work with companies, that were looking to bring services, and we had an audience to bring to them. And I started to really see that, hey, working with others, solving this through technology could be pretty interesting. I then just sort of focused on product management and product for, I would say, the next 5 years or so, kind of honed my understanding of looking at from a customer lens. And then moving into Yahoo is where really I pivoted into solely engaging with externally, but also having a very strong kind of connection with what are we trying to accomplish? What's the problem we're trying to solve for customers? And and then the springboard to Netflix, to where there was really I think a very clear inflection point that was occurring between, if it's DVD by mail to streaming, and then also the ability, that really critical meeting that you were probably in, Jessica, where, Reed was making a decision to work with others versus continuing to build a Netflix box.
Yep.
And
I remember it clearly.
There you go, and folks can search that one and learn more about it. But that was a catalyst to say, how can you do this at scale to bring technology to folks' living rooms in a consistent and quality way, while the team in Beverly Hills and other areas were building content with Ted and others to just put more on the platform and have more selection. And so the exposure of this comes in all shapes and sizes, from partners and in different cultures and sizes of companies and folks that have different experience. And so I started to see like, oh, wow, this is like, oh my God, like a nest of, I don't know how to codify this. How do I build a framework around this? It's not like when I was in web development or product management. So it just kind of grew from there. I wanted to really focus on the area of where I could, kind of connect what I believe I'm getting good at, what I love to do, what companies would actually, want to use and leverage my skill set.
Yeah, and I think, well, let's tell the listeners a little bit, because I think what you helped us achieve at Netflix was pretty special, and we were at this inflection point, and we were building a Netflix box, and we thought everybody was going to get our box and stream, TV shows and movies. And then we quickly realized it wasn't about being on one box, it was about being on every device possible, right? And getting people to have access to us, like wherever they had content, right? And it was, the transformation was, and I think our realization of that was key, right? Because imagine if we had built the box, right? And we were building it. I was hiring people to make the device in China, right? And then it was quickly like, don't do that anymore. But talk to us a little bit about that story, because I think it's a fascinating story.
My goodness. Oh, Jessica, you were at the epicenter of this. I think in terms of sort of like the core competency, it's one of the things I talk about in the book, which we'll get to later, is, kind of core versus context. And I think I learned a lot from Reed. I was very fortunate to have the quarterly connect points for the walks and the advice and inspiration from him. But I think the core aspect of saying, hey, what are we going to focus on as a company? Where are we going to differentiate and build this durability of our value, versus where we believe, hey, this is context, meaning not saying it's not important, but, there are experts in, various industries that focus on that as a business. They've optimized costs. I think, some of the challenges in building your own device out of the gate is, you got to build the device, you got to figure out the right, bill of materials costs, and you got to figure out how to market it, and you got to figure out how to distribute it, and, et cetera, et cetera. And there's much more established brands on the planet that do that. They have existing retail relationships and e-commerce relationships for distribution. And I think there was a core kind of decision there to say, like, hey, where do we want to focus on as a company, Netflix? And Reed made at that point, it was probably a hard decision to make, because of course the teams involved and et cetera. But I think, kind of looking back on it, it was definitely the right approach, and it's been really, I would say, an example that is looked at across not just video streaming, but also many other industries of software as a service to kind of hardware as a platform for distribution. Mm-hmm. And so then it was, I think, Jessica, that was a very hard decision, but it took the leadership, and it was a very hard decision to make. I'm sure at that time involved people as a very heavy component. And then it was, how do we do it?
Yeah.
And I think
how we do it.
Yeah. I mean, the part of it is to understand, hey, what's already in living rooms? How do folks actually connecting? And at that point in time, not every device that was in a living room had an internet connection. They may have an empty, Ethernet port in the back of a television or a Blu-ray player, but it was mostly used for a firmware update. And so, is it really something that you can? Not many devices even had Wi-Fi. Hard to believe. there was no HD or 4K sticks out there, and that was a thing that came a little bit later while I was at Netflix. But at the time, it was gaming consoles, that were probably the most advanced, with the Xbox, PlayStation, being able to connect for multiplayer gaming. That was kind of breaking down the walls of connecting across a network and with other players. And so that was the most robust, also technical platforms that were able to handle the compute required, as well as the, not just the storage on the device, but the ability for enough memory, et cetera, that could handle an application like Netflix. At that point in time, too, we were having companies ship us devices. We had a team that was doing the integrations. Yeah. And, it was very hands-on, and you help build that team you do the integration, you get it to a certain level of quality. But that was where the turning point was, not only in saying, hey, we should, partner with the device ecosystem, but also to develop a motion and program and a set of technology assets that allow partners to integrate it, but allow us to provide, at the end of the day, our goal is that quality of service and experience that we can ensure are brought to our end customers that are using Netflix. So it was really the shift that is difficult in partner programs, or to develop a partner program, is to say, hey, do we understand the product well enough? Do we understand what partner needs are and capabilities are well enough before you turn it into a program? If you start a program from day one, it's actually it's probably bound to fail because you really don't know the mechanics and what you're solving for. But if you first try it yourself, and we probably didn't intentionally try it that way, but we did it ourselves out of need and necessity, and then we said we got to help this scale. Is there a way we could build a kit? Is there a way we could build a portal for partners to engage? Is there a team we should build that understands culture and language and others? And that set the bit to create the Netflix Partner Program, which was brought to really the device ecosystem, and we prioritized based on how we can have the most reach to the most customers and access to it, based on the content availability. So there was a kind of a bit of a triangulation on where do we bring these, what kind of engagements do we work with, and which companies. But at that time, too, we were hopping on planes and, meeting with companies across the planet, concentration in Asia.
All over the world.
Yeah. We were all over the world, right? And you walk in a meeting, Jessica, like in Tokyo or, Seoul, and they've never heard of Netflix. And so, because Netflix DVD by mail wasn't there, streaming wasn't there yet, and so we were also a bit of the, the translator of, hey, what's happening with video streaming? Why do you need an internet connection on your living room device? So it was a very early stage to demonstrate, to collaborate with these companies. It was
we were the first to do
it.
We were. I mean, it was brilliant.
It was and it was a collective kind of wisdom from some incredible variety of folks inside of Netflix that I think you hired, and the team, Patty, had brought together.
So
that there wasn't like
Greg and
oh my God, nowadays you could say, oh, I want to hire a team to do this. Oh, let me go to Netflix, let me go to Hulu, let me go to Amazon Prime. At that time, it was like, oh wait, maybe do I need to find people that have done I don't know, Linux platforms on devices. Do I need
it was like this company, Divix, was it? It was like
Divix, I think Bill came from there.
Yeah, Bill came from there, and then Mediabolic, I think that was like where Greg was.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
and they were kind of putting stuff on devices, and I was like, okay, that'll work.
And I think that was, finding partners that were willing to innovate with us and try new things, and then also
Xbox was a really big one. That was like, yeah, when we got that
breakthrough.
Yeah.
And so really a mixture of, of product, a mixture of partnership, a mixture of technology. It was really the stars aligned, and then it really took off.
I don't know. Yeah. It's just, I kind of got goosebumps thinking about that, because it was just like, I don't know, like, I don't even really remember if I was just like making it up, like literally, but making it thoughtfully, but it was so fun. That was such a fun
It was.
It was so fun.
Exactly. I mean, when I look back on it, we were defining, you kind of use the metaphor of building the plane as you're flying it. Like, we didn't even say that because we were on the plane, and we were building this, service. And and at the same time, Ted and the content team was building, like, I remember when House of Cards, was launched. So there was also this other aspect of, really content being kind of crossing regions and cultural boundaries, which was also super breakthrough, because that had been very siloed.
I know.
So
it's kind of crazy.
It's incredible.
We were part of all that. So you have this incredible experience, like not only from Wired, where you started, but then you're Yahoo. You go to Netflix, and then now you're where you are. But what sort of pushed you to write a book, and while you're working, which I think is super hard?
After Netflix, I decided to go join our friend Ein McKendrick, and I think Bethany was there at the time too.
Yep, she was.
At a scrappy startup, and I hadn't rolled up my sleeves and been part of a very early stage company, and so it was definitely, I felt at that point, a very risky move. Although probably looking at the outside in, it was probably not too risky, because I had the support system and there's other opportunities, but it felt risky because I was leaving an amazing company.
Yeah.
I think for me to learn and the ups and downs in a startup, there were days where I'm like, why am I here? There are other days saying, hey, I'm here because I have to learn, and I'm going to stick through it. And no matter what happens, I'm going to have a story to tell about it.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. I took it all the way through. And ultimately, we created an amazing product partnership with one of our investors that ultimately folded us into their company. And I worked for Seagate Communications, or Seagate, at that time, where we were a scrappy startup inside of a pretty established company. And that was a whole other learning experience of how to do that effectively. Yeah. After that, I kind of hit my arc there, and was there for a little over 5 years, and then I decided to take a swing at the venture capital ecosystem, and so I joined Andreesen Horowitz, over on Sand Hill.
Never heard
and it
of
was
him.
a bit of. Never heard of him, that Mark Andreesen guy, but it was, kind of reconnecting with Mark too, from the Netscape days, which was very cool. And Ben Horowitz, who was leading LoudCloud, he was also part of Netscape back in the day.
One of the worst meetings I have ever had in my life was with Ben Horowitz.
Yeah. What?
I think,
what happened?
I don't know. He's probably the only person in the world that I didn't connect with. I connect with pretty much everybody, right? Anyways,
maybe a bad day. I don't know.
No, they had me talking to one of their portfolio companies, and he was on the board, and they really wanted me to go to the company, and I was still at Netflix, and had me come in and meet him, and he's in this really big office, huge office, right? And it's I don't know, I'm sitting at his desk, and we start chit-chatting, and then all of a sudden this lady walks in the room, and she sits in the very back corner, and she just starts typing, and I was and he's oh, don't worry about her, she's just gonna record everything you say. And I was oh. I was okay.
Now we have AI for that one, for sure.
Right. I was like, okay. And then he and I got into this like conversation about how it would structure compensation for a company, and he didn't like how I would do it, and we had a pretty special philosophy about it at Netflix, which was pay market, right? And if you want the best, you got to pay the best, and we were talking about that, and he was like, no, you can't do that. And I was like, I said, well, it's how you asked me how I would think about it, and that's how I would think about it. And so we just kind of got into this. I don't know, maybe he didn't hate me, but like, I don't think he liked me.
He was speaking. Yeah, I mean, if a lot of folks will seek confirmation, like of maybe early stage, super early stage would be different. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it worked. It worked at Netflix extremely well. I would say.
And that's what that's what I was trying to explain to him. I was like, it's not to say that you have to do it exactly this way, but I feel like if we make it simple, if we, anyways, it didn't resonate.
And he got it. He's gotten it right a few times too, right? Obviously, So
but it's just funny that you mentioned it. So you go to this.
I go to Andreessen Horowitz, and it's a role that I'm kind of like, again, feeling like a leap. Like I'm kind of like figuring out, is this an area I want to expand in? Do I want to just go try and go back to like an operational role? But at that time, it was very compelling because I had started to think about, just from the variety of roles I've had and the kind of engagements, for BD and partnerships, that the way the role was explained to me, and the way that, I just built on it over time, was how do we engage with a portfolio of companies, a very diverse set of companies, B2C, B2B, B2B2C, all different business models, and accelerate their growth through creating more value for them, or doing it in a faster period of time. A lot of different value of creating partnerships, and who do you do it with, and how do you do it at scale? And I thought that was a fascinating, opportunity. And I joined the team to lead the consumer portfolio for A16Z, as they're known. 16 letters in between A and Z. That's that's the formula. That's the formula. But and then coming up with a way to codify, how do you look at 400 companies and determine where to focus time and effort and impact on? And so I took that. There wasn't really a structure around that. It was very much a reactive kind of model, or an advisory model, where maybe a general partner who sits on the board of a company would say, hey, this company needs a contact. Do you know anybody at Netflix? And it's like, okay, that's a connector role, not super valuable, but okay, maybe that could be done through an email. But I looked at it a little bit differently, because being an operator, it's like, at the end of the day, you want to figure out how to grow companies.
Right.
And what we did at Netflix, I mean, that was the extreme depth of what you could build. How could you do that for a company like OfferUp? Do it for Lyft, do it for Pinterest. These are all pre-IPO companies at the time.
Yeah.
And so I took it on to say, well, how do you come up with kind of, first off, a matrix and framework of stage? Let's put these companies in stages. Anyone in the company know every consumer company and what stage they're at? What other attributes do we have about these companies? Okay, stage. In terms of ARR too, what kind of revenue are they generating? When are they planning to go IPO? Are we trying to, what about the talent they have? Do they have BD and partnerships? Do they not? Are they looking to, is there an inflection point that they're looking to go create go into a new market? Do they want to go after new customers, or go after a new region, or, country? And so I started to build a rationale around, what stage would be appropriate for me to engage with the CEO of a company, and to approach them to first understand what's their kind of North Star of what they're trying to achieve. What's their kind of the BHAG of, OfferUp or Pinterest, or we could talk about a few of the companies more. But then to align with that CEO and see if there was that chemistry where an outsider, of me coming in, not where I would be a mole from the general partner inside of the company, but really a partner to say, hey, I am here to help grow your company. And is it through partnership? If it's through partnership, let's identify the right contacts that we can then bring a proposal to them and identify the way we can engage and create, the if you want to call it the partnership strategy and product, and then the actual, contract, and then get a team to execute it. So it was finding like a framework that could make sense for the right companies. And then I built out a team there, and we had some great success of how to build out an operation, and align very closely with the general partners of because they sit on the boards of several companies to understand, hey, does this make sense? Should we be spending our time here? And your question about, hey, why the book and how did that come into the picture? I think for me, a key decision point, or at least like light bulb for me, was when I was working with many of these early stage or later stage startups. There was also a very intelligent group of interns that were coming on board inside the firm, and they were super well educated and were put into BD and partnership roles to kind of do kind of entry level for the kind of work I was doing. And they were saying, Rich, how do you do this? Like, there wasn't really a class or for BD or for partnerships. How are you building a relationship with the CEO? How are you getting a partnership in place with Amazon or another company? And so I started to really coach them and advise this internal group, a few individuals, and I spent a lot of time with them. And then I thought to myself, there's probably a larger audience, or even the earlier version of me and the colleagues I know in this practice that could use some help, and we could. And I felt almost it was my duty to say, hey, I've learned so much from a lot of leaders. They've spent the time with me. I was lucky to have, my dad, who was one of the pioneers in strategic alliances and partnerships in the Valley. He did it for mainframe computers and telecom networks. So that was Friday nights, and he would, I'd bounce ideas off of him. Different era. Yeah. But it was, about building trust and about, and great ideas. And so I felt it was like, okay, I think there's something here that could I develop a framework that has the flexibility in the framework that others can either use, adapt to a variety of things. And also, so that's kind of started the scribing of, what ultimately became Co-Elevate, the book that, is sitting here.
We finally said the title, Co-Elevate, you guys. It's a great
Co-Elevate.
So like when I was reading and researching the book and things, like I think it was like you said something like 70% of partnerships fail or something. And I mean, and I was just like, when you reached out and started thinking about partnerships in general, and like they're so necessary, but and you need partners for your business, right? But it takes work to have that partnership. And the minute, like, I don't know, I just was thinking about like vendors and partners that, I've used in the past, whether it's like Workday or whatever else. The minute that relationship starts to go sour or whatever, it's like the service you're getting isn't good. Like you're not benefiting each other. And it's always interesting to me too, because I think people that have partnered with us at Netflix always say how different it was to partner with us versus other companies, because we gave them feedback, because we were more direct, because, but why do partnerships fail? What is it about this that doesn't
it's
work?
It's a fascinating topic. And I think what grounded Co-Elevate, the kind of the purpose, of Co-Elevate, other than, hey, there's a framework, I started to research like, hey, what about outside of the work I've done, about, what's working, what's not working. And the 70% of partnerships failing after 2 years is a stat from PwC, McKinsey, others. So it's grounded in real fact. Now, the after 2 years is very key, meaning what we did at Netflix and in some of my other, gigs is really, it's about sort of what happens not only before the contract, but after, and having the operational rigor to develop sometimes what I call a virtual company, meaning these two companies come together to have the goals, the objectives, the relationship, the metrics, the way you're operating this as an entity that and that's where, we had what success looked like, but for the partnership. How are we tracking this? How many viewers are engaged? How many signups do we have? Is this working?
Right.
So being able to really have a really solid transition from deal to partnership,
right.
Because the word partnership does get used very loosely, which is fine. Yeah. It gets used in personal relationships too, right? Like there's a lot of similarities. But for this one, it's more about setting the structure of a partnership to operate to be sustainable over time. And that's where I saw the make or break to say, how do you solve the 70%? You could be part of the 30, or, kind of my bigger aspirational goal is to reduce the 70,
Yeah. At
yeah.
the 2-year mark, what's one of the biggest reasons why these are failing? Like, is it just they don't have that partnership contract, or why do they fail?
So many of them, it depends on the partnership. There's a lot of different flavors of why a partnership can fail, over the 2-year time mark or more. Is that, first off, is there the right incentives for the partnership? Meaning, in some cases, it can be a short-term deal, a short-term deal that may not have equal value or joint incentives that are very clear and aligned on at the right levels in the companies. So first off, do you have that foundation? Meaning, and it's prioritized between both companies. There's an element of having a team that will actually operationalize and execute the partnership. So many times, and we didn't have this issue or challenge at Netflix, but there may be a deal done and there's no one to catch the ball, or the deal's done and maybe the deal it can't be operationalized due to some technical constraints, or it's not on the roadmap, or misalignment with internal business teams or product teams. And so having a continuity to go from the very early stage to say, number one, hey, what are we trying to do as a company and as a business unit?
Right.
Are we trying to grow our product audience? Are we trying to grow, our brand awareness? What are the right companies? Can we do this alone? Oh, do we need partners? That meeting with Reed,
right.
The town hall, he was answering that question.
Yeah.
Now, being able to have the reflection, the self-reflection to do that very early, I would say, like, for building the right sustainable partnership strategy, it starts from the very beginning to say, what is the business strategy of the company? How do partners really fold in to help be a strategic component of that? Do we have the right companies and the right criteria of these companies? Meaning, do they have the right reach? Do they have the right team and capabilities? Do they have the right brand? Do they have the right growth trajectory for their company itself? Because some of these could die on a vine down the road too. So in the book too, I outline probably 7 or 8 areas of why partnerships fail. And some of them will have more gravity on others depending on the partnership. But at the end of the day, too, it's about an amazing idea. And an amazing idea that will, that potentially both companies can't do independently. And when you bring it together, this idea solves a really big customer problem. And being able to define that and align with that partner prior to doing the deal, coming up with a financial and business case that says that this is a good thing for both companies, but a joint business case that says this is why we should both do it, making the investment in the team and in the executive team to have that joint incentive and alignment and prioritization, and then managing this, through its evolution. Right. There's a lot in between there, sure. But, and I've been part of the 70% in the past. So, I've seen it. I've been a distraction to companies in the past where you could do it too early.
Yeah.
You could do partnerships too early. And if you don't have that level of precision and thoughtfulness on the right time to do it, it could be it can pull resources away, or it could impact other needs. But
well, I like what you said a few minutes ago was like that idea of entity together, right? I don't know if people approach partnerships that way. Like, okay, we've done this deal and now we're together. We're like a little business, right? And we're an entity and because I don't know, maybe you have much more experience, but sometimes in partnerships, it's like, I don't know, kind of, it becomes like an us versus them. You know what I mean? What we want, what they want, and there's not alignment on that. So I like the idea of like, the incentives, we're an entity, we're doing this together, and here's the framework of how we're going to accomplish all those things. I like that. And
it's not all super rosy, right? Obviously. Yeah, so sure. Like you could be in this very early stage of assessment and say like, yeah, what I call like where I've landed career-wise, but also in the book, I talk about optimistic realism. Because, I would say earlier in my career, it was all about full optimism. And that can be a bit blinding to the reality, right? You know what I mean? So, but if you kind of come in with the very pessimistic or skepticism, it's hard to look around and see above the trees kind of thing. So I think for finding that grounding, you have to, in some engagements, you have to be, parts of the partnership, you wear in different hats, or you're super the optimist, or you're super the realist, or you're your own skeptic. And so I think in the early stages of saying, should we go do this? It's that's where like we have to be very clear. It's not about getting the press release, and a lot of partnerships do end after the press release. And it's a good milestone to get out there. And if it's the right purpose of press, to kind of flag the market that, hey, come and talk to us. What's the purpose? It's not, is it to show your own kind of milestone and value, but like, hey, at the end of the day, there's other ways in which to create these forcing functions to create both parties to move forward. But hey, maybe it's not right. I go into partnerships saying, hey guys, like, hey, and gals, let's actually figure out, should we go do this? I don't want to start from like I don't know if this is not going to work, like I kind of go through the process and say, hey, let's both come to the conclusion that this is maybe not the right thing. Now, it's going to get rocky over time. Like you said, there's us versus them. And that is, ensuring that there's an honest and transparent relationship that doesn't have those types of walls to, and that's hard because you're also sort of this window into the other company. Yeah. And so there's this part of saying, hey, you're an advocate for your own company and ensuring what's best for your own company, but at the same time, being able to be this catalyst to ensure that this partnership is still growing and doesn't create that us versus them. But it's hard to deflect that. I mean, you have to kind of hit it head on.
Totally. But I love all that you're saying. And I think, what's great about this book and what's great about your experience is that I don't just think that this helps like in a partnership in a work perspective. I think this just helps in partnership in life perspective. Like a lot of what you write about in the book, I think just you have partners all over, your friends, you have, your love partners, you have, I don't know. My kid's really not a partner. He's an employee.
It's a little different. Yeah, I hear you. I can relate to that.
Like, you are the boss, Mom. I'm like, I know. And he's like, you're the boss of me and the boss of Daddy. I was like, yes, true. But I'm glad he recognizes at a young age. But I just think your book is great. And I'll give you one more question before we go, because we're running out of time. But now that you're an author, okay, what's changed? Anything?
What's changed? I'm reconnecting with folks like you and others in my network in a lot of different lenses and context, and I absolutely love that. I think in terms of seeing a little more above the trees and looking at the bigger picture of not to get like sentimental or anything, but like kind of the life's journey and what's important. But being able to connect that back and find energy within my day job in what I do here, and knowing that, hey, you got to go all in, but otherwise, why are you there?
Yeah.
We got to go all in with the stuff we do.
Yeah.
And for me, Co-Elevate is a bit of a bridge to bring me outside of the walls a little bit, of what I do, but also has that thread of what I do and I love to do, and I hope that others that read it can add to it, and I can have more conversations about it. And the reception has been super cool for my own network, but it's extended now, which was quite amazing. And I'm hearing contrary kind of debates about what's in the book, and I'm hearing like, hey, I use this, this framework, or I launched this AI advisor also, which is built on the book content, and it's supplemental material, so you can ask the Co-Elevate AI advisor for help.
Oh.
So I don't have to be be on a Zoom call, but I'm experimenting, as we all are in our jobs, with how AI is coming into the picture, but trying to embrace that, and thinking about kind of rolling with it. To be honest, I don't know what's going to happen next. Yeah, I'm excited.
I'm so excited for you. I'm so proud of you. This is amazing. We're going to roll into career confessions in just a second. But before we do that, we always ask our guests to give our listeners a little nugget. And this is just like the best advice you can give them. Think of it that way. So what's your advice to the listeners today?
My advice is to build your network and find your mentors that can be your guiding light. If that's a relative, one of your parents, or if that's someone in your network that can be along for your journey. You need your champions and folks that inspire you. Nurture those relationships, and when they give to you, give back to others. That's actually something, that particular notion I learned from John Chambers. What he calls the magic of Silicon Valley. Don't ask for anything in return, but all I ask is you go help somebody else. Right. And so network and helping others, and continuing to grow that sort of network effect of mentoring, and So I think that's a great one. That's always stuck with me.
Good advice, Rich. Good advice. Okay, we're going to do career confession. Okay, here's the context. I've launched a partnership with a big name company, and the announcement was great, but 6 months later, I realized the integration barely moved the needle. So here's the question. What's the one step I can take today to turn a flashy headline into a strategic, lasting collaboration?
I don't want this to sound like a marketing pitch, but
get your book.
Get the book. No, so reach out to me. I'd happy to help, and at the same time connect you with others in my network that can help and provide maybe a third party, advice, and be a mentor, or build your own network as a partnership professional. It's hard to answer it, Jessica, in one crisp answer, other than look for help, seek perspectives. At the end of the day, the individual that is in the hot seat, that is responsible for this, has to make the call. It is up to them, but they need perspectives. This is not a discipline that is super predictable, and it's not something taught in school. But hey, at the end of the day, look for that. Be the synthesizer. Have a point of view, and stick to it. That's what folks are looking for, is your conviction. Yeah.
Love it. Buy Rich's book, Co-Elevate. Okay, Rich, where can they find you if they want to find you, and where can they find the book? I'm guessing where all books are sold, they can find the book, and then where can they find you?
Yeah, find me on LinkedIn. Do a quick search on Richard Ezekiel. Find me there. Go to coelevatebook.com. What you'll find at coelevatebook.com is more in-depth, information about the book, some of the, kind of the features of the book at a glance, some of what folks are saying about the book, and then request the access to the AI advisor there too. Reach out to me though. I think this is it's going to be interesting where the book goes, and I think the future of partnerships are really going to be shaped by the individuals that use them, and I think AI is going to have a pretty big impact on that. So I'm excited to see what happens next.
Me too. Well, I'm just so glad you wrote a book so that we could hang out.
Yeah, that's cool too. Good to reconnect.
I know.
I love this.
It's been way too long. I would give you a big hug if I was with you.
All right. Awesome.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool, Jessica.
Thank you, Rich, for coming on, and thanks for writing such a great book.
Hey, thank you.